I started off a technologist and architect, so I still like to wear those hats. And I'll still dive in and try to understand how things are going to work, how things are going to integrate, and then keep a pulse on the projects. But really, I try to get good people who can execute on those projects.
Right.
And then I orchestrate, right? So what projects get the priority, what projects get the budget, and then at some point I'm part accountant, right? So
Right, I guess.
doing a lot of budgeting, doing a lot of
ROI.
forecasting and ROI, and building business cases for why we should do a project. And then human resources, right? So
Yes.
hiring people and making sure we've got the right team, and building staffing plans and personnel plans. So those are, I would say, some of the big things. Building the strategy for the technology. Working to get the buy-in, like you say, with the political side of it. Marketing to make sure everybody knows what we're doing and
Yes.
it's going well. And the technology, while I still like to do it, that's not as big of a piece of it anymore. I'm not in there writing code. I'm not out there actually executing the projects myself. But I do like to be involved in designing and coming up with ideas.
So for every time I get asked what it takes to be at the C level, if I could can that answer that you just gave, that covers the entire broad spectrum of every aspect of the role and how well-rounded it is, I think that would be the answer of what it takes. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Navigating Technology with Zeal. Every episode we bring to you a esteemed leader in the technology space. We have some fun discussions. We talk about their career journey, their life path, what they're looking for in the future, and also some hot technology topics. We are very lucky to have in our offices today CIO Archer Systems, Mark Overton. If I start going into Mark's accomplishments and credentials, I think that will be the entire episode, because Mark started in the industry over 25 years ago as a core technologist, a principal architect, so moved to the dark side. And Mark has incredible credentials in a master's in business administration, as well as a bachelor's in computer science, which is where the core technology aspect comes in. Yeah. And then Mark has also been a finalist and nominated for I believe at this point, 10 or so Orbi CIO awards for Dallas as well. So congratulations, Mark. What a lucky day for us to have you here today.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
So what an incredible journey. What depth of expertise. What got you started in technology? What was it that you said at the crossroads of, I think I want to be in the tech world?
Well, I've always liked technology. Even in high school, I had programming classes. I took programming classes for a couple of years there. And then I went into college. And honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do in college. I also have an art background. So
wow.
I started off as an architecture major.
Okay.
And then I ended up, going, well, I don't think I'll do art, or architecture, so let's do art. So then I'm like, I don't think I'll make any money in art. So then I'm like, I'll go ahead and do technology. So
Right.
yeah, that's when I decided to go.
And this is all through college years?
Yeah, all through college years.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you discovered and figured it out in good time, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you added up all my credit hours, I probably had, 200 hours because I kept changing majors or something like that.
But eventually you got it right, it seems.
I got it right, and
That's
yeah, I
what
got
we
my
hope,
science.
right? That the kids will figure it out. It's a journey of self-discovery when you're in college. So looking at your background in technology, you're at Archer Systems right now, Greyhound before that, HKS, which is an architectural firm before that. Most of the CIOs I interview belong to a core industry line, and they may go back and forth between different areas, but transportation, healthcare, finance. This is one of the very few times that I come across a technologist that has done such major pivots in their career between industry verticals. What has that been like for you?
I like it. I really don't want to be pigeonholed into a certain industry. And I like to be able to look at things across different industries and really understand, how you can apply technology. And there's a lot of similarities, no matter what industry you're in. And, there's some differences, but I just like solving those problems and looking at it from that lens. So yeah, I've always enjoyed changing things around.
So which of the industries has been more challenging than others from your areas of experience?
More challenging, I would say my current industry is probably the most challenging, which is, legal services. So I think, just some of the things we're doing, I have a lot more influence, a lot more, control over, the direction of the company versus, at HKS Architects, it was really keeping the lights on and a little bit of, building some things, but it was really mostly secondary to their industry. The technology that they use is all about drawing buildings, and they have specialists that sort of manage that. So I was more over infrastructure and back office systems. And then at Greyhound, that was really challenging. We went through COVID during that period of time. Lots of legacy systems, so legacy modernization, but really being able to look at future technology. This is the one.
So let's talk a little bit more about your role at Archer and what that entails.
Yeah, so CIO there, I've been there for about 2.5 years. And I'm part of the executive team. So there's me, the CFO, the COO, our president and general counsel, and then our CEO. And we really work together to drive the business forward. Working with the COO and the CFO to try to automate a lot of our work. We do claims processing, so being able to analyze claims, figure out how much each claimant gets, and then pay all the associated people. And that's really been a big manual process. So before I got there, it was paper checks. It was people with spreadsheets.
So wait a second. For class action lawsuit settlement, there were paper checks?
Yeah, so technically it's mass tort, slightly different than
Okay.
class action.
Okay.
But yeah, so
No, thank you for clarifying.
yeah, so paper checks, and we still do paper checks, but we do have digital options. We only do paper if people want to pick
One
the paper.
check. Okay. And so all of that was manual before you started,
Mhm.
and now it's what kind of efficiencies were gained?
Oh, I mean, we've looked at probably like a 30% efficiency in payment processing. I haven't counted up, the percentage of the efficiency, but we've built workflows that allow us to digitally process, Medicare and Medicaid documents, and it's processed, tens of thousands, over 100,000 documents, and saved, thousands of hours of labor. So, it's amazing what we've been able to do, with the short time I've been there.
I'm so curious about this line of thought. What type of technologies did you implement to gain this level of automation?
So a lot of it is custom built. We haven't used a lot of off the shelf products. So I have a lot of development team. I've used you guys to help out build some of these things. But we've used Azure Cognitive Services with the document intelligence processing to look at the records, process them, analyze them, kick off workflows. Right now we're building an AI tool that is using a platform to do medical record review. So, it's looking at the medical records, coming up with a determination on that. But we do want human in the loop. So we've got humans reviewing it, nurses making sure that what comes out from the AI is legitimate, and then making that final determination. So we're using, OpenAI's platform there, along with some other platforms to put these things.
Probably not as many humans as you needed before it was automated.
Yeah, so it's we still have the same amount of humans. We can just do it much faster.
Much faster. So you're processing more claims and faster.
Yeah, so we benchmarked a given project, and one of the projects that took our team of nurses 5 months to process all of these medical records. And based on our analysis, we could have done that in 1 month. So
Wonderful. And so now have you reached every CIO's ultimate dream of the company and the board saying whatever Mark wants, open checkbook? After proving in 2.5 years you've done a lot.
it's not quite an open checkbook, but yeah, it is. They're very, very good to work with. I tell you what. So when I meet with the board and our private equity partners, they're very complimentary. They're very happy with the direction that things are going. And so, it's very easy to get projects moving compared to other companies that have a lot of bureaucracy.
Right. And I think the proof is in the pudding, right? Your work speaks for itself. So I know a lot of our colleagues that are in transition right now. When somebody starts at a new role, did you start off with a definitive 30, 60, 90-day goal? Did you just get in there, look at a problem, roll your sleeves and say, let's solve it? What was your strategy in proving your value in a new role? Because a lot of us are normally in our positions for a long time. And so we're not used to then starting fresh and then saying, this is what I bring to the table.
Yeah, so this is my third CIO role. So, it's very similar startup on each one, right? So you go in, you talk to people, you talk to the business partners, and then you figure out where the pain points are,
Right.
and then you come up with a plan. And so I would say that I do try to put together a 100-day plan where I'm going in and saying these are the things I'm evaluating, this is what I've found, this is the outcome, and then laying out a roadmap to make the changes. And it's worked well, and I think people react positively to it.
Yeah, I feel like having a definitive roadmap that you chart out shows the vision that you carry as well. And then to be able to then complete it is, message delivered, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's good. And the CEO likes to have communication, so they like somebody to come in with a plan. And that same thing happened at Greyhound and even at HKS. They brought people in to make change. Usually when they bring in a new CIO, it's not to keep things the same.
Same, right.
And so they want somebody to come in and sort of shake things up.
What kind of resistance do you face when you step into an org that is an established org and you're the new CIO and you're brought in to transact change? How does that look internally for within the technology department, but also external facing with business users?
Well, there's always going to be people who don't want to change, both in the technology department and the business. And you have to work with them and figure out what their resistance is, and either try to get them to buy in or go ahead and just move past them, right? So
Right.
sometimes they're not going to change, and you just have to move forward without them, or pushing through. But if you get the buy-in of the right people and they're willing to support you on that, that's what matters. And here at Archer, it has taken a couple of years, but everybody on the executive team is bought into our technology roadmap. There's little to no resistance at that level. And then I use them to help drive that with their teams. And then even with my team, I'm fortunate to work with a lot of people that I have brought with me from other organizations. And so we all know our working style,
Right.
and, we all understand how to work together, and we can drive that forward too.
Right. That's commendable. And I feel like just that one sentence there about having buy-in from the executive team. I know that every type of organization has their own challenges. Sometimes you're contending with the board. Other times you just have really strong business stakeholders. And some other times, like at law firms, you have partners that are very invested in every dollar spent that's not directly related to the operations of the law firm, right? So for you to have accomplished that in such a short amount of time is quite an achievement in itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a small task at all there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I noticed that at HKS, it was, a partnership. And so, we had 75 partners. And, sometimes I had to talk to almost all of them to get buy-in on things. But here at Archer, it's a smaller core group of people.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier to get everybody on board, especially when you can prove
Right.
how things can be better. And then they see that, and then they're willing to make change.
Right. So an ideal CIO personality like yourself, you're part politician, part diplomat, part businessman, and then part technologist. How's that balance happening for you, especially with the changes in the tech space? Because there's lots of new shiny objects and technically exciting projects that weren't quite possible a few years back. What is your balance and how do you achieve that?
Well, like you said, I started off a technologist and architect, so I still like to wear those hats. And I'll still dive in and try to understand how things are going to work, how things are going to integrate, and then keep a pulse on the projects. But really, I try to get good people who can execute on those projects.
Right.
And then I orchestrate, right? So what projects get the priority? What projects get the budget? how much are we going to spend on this and that, and then at some point I'm part accountant, right? So
Right. Oh,
doing
yes.
doing a lot of budgeting, doing a lot of
ROI.
forecasting and ROI, and building business cases for why we should do a project. So that's fun, and then human resources, right? So
Yes.
hiring people and making sure we've got the right team, and building staffing plans and personnel plans. So those are, I would say, some of the big things. Building the strategy for the technology. Working to get the buy-in, like you say, with the political side of it. Marketing to make sure everybody knows what we're doing and
Yes.
it's going well. And the technology, while I still like to do it, that's not as big of a piece of it anymore. I'm not in there writing code. I'm not out there actually executing the projects myself. But I do like to be involved in designing and coming up with ideas.
Yeah. So for every time I get asked what it takes to be at the C level, if I could can that answer that you just gave, that covers the entire broad spectrum of every aspect of the role and how well-rounded it is, I think that would be the answer of what it takes.
Yeah.
So for people that are looking for that mentorship and advice, I know that I get asked a lot, especially by the younger generation that's deciding whether they want to take the management track and go more information systems or CIO track versus a principal architect, a core techie track. What is your advice, and how should one decide if one is at that crossroad, which way to go?
Well, I think number one, you need to be well-rounded, right? So if you pigeonhole yourself and say, I'm just going to be a technologist, well, that's great if that's what you want to do and you always want to be a developer or a technologist, but that's one area. But if you really want to, say, get into management or leadership or move into a C-level role, you have to understand a lot more than just technology. So I would suggest, getting that well-rounded area of, understanding finance and business, whether you get an MBA or not, just understand it, right? So understand, all the technology, or I'm sorry, all the finance terms like EBITDA and,
Yes.
ROI and, what do those things mean? And capitalization. And, I spend so much time figuring out how much we can capitalize versus not, so we can increase our EBITDA. I really feel like a lot of times I'm, in finance or accounting more than I am in
You're
technology.
like CapEx, OpEx, CapEx, OpEx.
Exactly. But I think, if that's what you want to do, is to really move into that leadership role, then you need to understand all aspects. You need to understand the business side of things, not just the technology. And then you can understand how you can use technology to fix those business
Right.
problems. So whenever I made the leap from technologist to business leader, it was really a big decision, right? So,
Right.
I was in my 20s and I'm like, hey, I really love technology. I could keep going as an architect, but how far can you get, right? So
Right.
a lead architect, principal architect, so there's definitely a ceiling there for a lot of that. But I really liked solving those problems and looking at the bigger picture. So, it was a hard choice, but I made the decision that, I wanted to have a bigger influence than just the technology implementation itself.
Right.
And so I think if anybody who's interested in doing that looks at it that way and says, where can I make the biggest impact?
Right.
You're going to need to make that leap
decide
eventually.
Yeah.
Otherwise everybody, if you're happy writing code and, building queries and doing that kind of stuff, then I'm not saying you should stop. But I think that there's more impact that I could have understanding the strategy of the company and putting a technology strategy in place that can help drive us there.
Absolutely. Did you always like working with people, or did you have to develop that skill along the way?
No, I've always liked it.
Okay.
I worked at, I was a restaurant manager,
Oh,
waiter
wow.
back in college. So that was one of the things, like I said, whenever I was figuring out what to do in college, I didn't want to be a developer because I just imagined sitting there with headphones on in a room
Yeah.
coding. And I'm like,
Dark room.
I want to interact with people. And so, a friend of mine in college said, well, you could go be a consultant. And I was
Right.
like, okay, well, tell me about that. So he talked to me and I'm like, yeah, that's what I think I would like to do. And so, whenever I got out of college, I was a developer, but I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to go do some other things. And so I was working at Nortel as a developer during the .com days. And then, with all the shakeups that were going on at Nortel, I ended up going into consulting for a company called Navigator Systems, so worked there for a few years. So I think consulting is another good way, to expand your career, because you can understand many businesses, many different problems, and then you can start looking at it and saying, hey, these things all are similar, right? So
Right.
each industry has similar problems, and you can
Right.
start to see these trends and these patterns. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, I see that too. I did my career in reverse. I came from industry side to consulting. And I feel like, just like with anything else, if I was younger and working out, those muscles would not be so sore.
Yeah.
And now trying to adapt and learn, it is definitely an exciting, fast-paced world and a lot to learn. And it gives you that broad width, which is pretty much why your career has taken the trajectory it's taken, because you set out with a lot of intention to have it be that way. What is the one aspect about your career that brings you the most joy?
I would just say, the relationships that I've built over the years, and the people that I know, and the people that I've worked with that I still keep in touch with year after year and day after day. I mean, like I said, it's a small group of people that, in the Dallas area,
Right.
and I know so many of them. I mean, even like Heather and David, I've worked with them. A lot of the people that work with me at Archer today, Jack and Jeff, Shauna. I mean, these are all people that I've brought from multiple companies. So I really like the fact that I've got those people who are willing to go with me and take on these challenges.
Now, if you had to then say, what was this one driving force or secret sauce ingredient to your success for people that look up to you and look at you as a role model to say, okay, this is where we want to be in a few years, what would you say that one superpower of yours
I would
is?
say, always be curious, be, open to learning, and work hard. I'm definitely not the kind of person who's going to sit around and on my hands. So I'm always looking to make things better.
Right,
And I think you have to be curious about that, find out
right,
where those problems are,
right.
and dig into them and come up with solutions and iterate and make fast wins. So I think that's really powerful.
I think being curious is key. Asking the questions and then learning in the process of asking those questions.
And keep digging, right? So don't just
Right.
take the first superficial answer, right?
That's true.
So, even when I'm working today with folks in the business units, I'll ask them, okay, so how do you do this job?
Mhm.
And they'll tell me, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Let's talk about that. And you just dig deeper, and then you're like, oh, well, we could definitely make that a lot more efficient,
Right,
using a little technology.
right.
And so then we go and build a plan around that, and that's how it works.
So if you, whatever you can share with what you're working on at Archer Systems right now that you're excited about upcoming. I know we heard a little bit about what you've done from an automation standpoint. What are you looking forward to? What's coming up there?
Well, I mean, we are really trying to build out this payment automation platform. So that's one of our big processes where, we want to make it so that from the time that somebody gets approved for their payment to the time that the check goes out, nobody has to touch it, right? So
Okay.
it goes through all the checks and balances. It gets the right approvals. It sends the message to the claimant themselves for this is how much you should get. Get that signed off from them. It comes back. We get approval from the law firm, and then the check or the digital payment goes out with pretty much no manual intervention. And then we can have the people who are working on that really focus on the outlier cases and
Right.
the things that are just smooth and go through. And so that's one of our big goals, is just trying to automate that. But like I said on the AI, I think that AI right now, there's a lot of hype,
Hmm.
but I think that there are a lot of good use cases.
Right.
I don't feel like AI, we don't have artificial general intelligence yet, so I don't have a bunch of bots out there doing everybody's job. And I don't know when
When
that's going
that
to happen.
right.
It could be 10 years, could be 15, could be never. Maybe we'll never get to that
Right.
spot. But AI as a tool
Right.
is very important. And so we're trying to leverage that in different areas to make people more efficient, right? So we still want the person involved, because they get to make that final judgment.
Right.
Even my development team, right? So getting them tools like Cursor or other things so that they can be more efficient, right? So that they don't have to do all the menial tasks and write all the code themselves,
Right.
but they can say, come up with a big overall plan. This is what we want to do. Let the AI write some code. They can evaluate it and modify it as needed. But if it makes them better and more efficient, I think that's where it's important.
Yeah, I think it's like the old school of thought where when calculators first came out, the teachers would still stress that you do your calculations by hand because everybody should know.
Right.
But I think that's so outdated now. Most nobody does that. I think calculators are allowed everywhere, even in schools.
Right.
So, and now that's even a step further. Now it's, everything's automated. So what kind of a tech stack would you look at for a project like this that automates and creates literally a no human interaction, human touch workflow between getting approved for a claim to getting your payment?
So, I mean, we're using the Microsoft technologies for the most of it, right? So, we've got our own development team, our own architects, and we're building this automation workflow in our existing applications that are Microsoft C#, .NET, SQL Server stack. So that's the technology. I've always been around the Microsoft side. I've at different companies I've had to support a lot of other things, but when I started developing, the core was Microsoft, and when .NET first came out, and the early 2000s, I was one of the first adopters of it.
Are you mostly in cloud, or you have a combination of on-prem and in cloud?
We're 100% in the cloud.
Okay,
So, yeah,
wonderful.
we made that jump at the beginning of this year. We still had some on-premise data center at a colo, but we moved everything to the cloud. So we've got a lot of things in AWS. A lot of our new stuff is in Azure, and we have to work in the hybrid cloud environment.
Okay, wonderful. How was the CapEx, OpEx mind frame for that decision to go 100% cloud?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interestingly enough. So, I mean, the data center hosting, that's OpEx, right? So you've got hardware, but
Unless you have on your own servers,
right.
right? Yeah.
Yes, and we did own our own servers, but those were sunk costs. They had already been bought, right? So we had to make the decision on what can make us more efficient. And I think maintaining hard drives and power supplies is not what's really driving the business, right? Nobody is like, I'm going to change the business by changing hard drives better, or making sure that the power supplies are better, or making sure that the server is running optimally, right? So give that to the cloud provider so that they can manage that underlying infrastructure, and you put your finances towards things that are more strategic, which is building things that solve business problems, right? So nobody's ever made a company better or more profitable by managing that infrastructure better than the next person, right? And as a small company, we don't have 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 people managing infrastructure, right? So let's give that to somebody who that's their job.
Right.
We'll build things that solve our business problems.
Right. Do you feel the same way about IT security let the people that are experts at it do it, or do you bring a lot of that in-house?
I think it's always a combination, right? So we have a small group of security folks, but we do have a managed SOC. We use a lot of tools that we put together. But I don't have a 50-person security team to make sure that everything's secure. So we do have to use third parties and leverage outside tools. But we have a group of people that triage things and that sort of come up with a plan and build out the strategy for it. So
right. And I think because that's another in your industry, I feel like that would be a hot button topic, would be the security of the data, because you have medical information, claims information, and you're processing payments on top of that. So if somebody's accepting a digital form of payment, maybe you have their account information and so on and so forth. So there must be a heavy focus on cybersecurity.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Whenever I was interviewing at Archer, I was interviewing with our general counsel, and we were talking about it, and I said, I never want to wake up and find me or my company in the news because of a data breach.
Oh.
And I think that's what got me hired from him, because he was like, I agree.
Yeah.
And so we really do a lot to try to make things secure, because we've got a lot of PII and PHI.
Right.
luckily, we don't actually capture payment information. So
Okay,
we
so
use
no
a third party.
PCI.
We do use a third party to actually process the payments. So, people log into their portal and give their bank account. So,
It's a
I'm
little,
not, I'm
there's
not
a
having,
firewalled out there, so to speak.
yeah, exactly.
That's wonderful. So lots of exciting things in the hopper. Do any of your competitors in the space have this level of automation that you're exacting for Archer Systems?
It's a very small group of people that are our competitors, and honestly, I can't say what all they have skunk works going on. But what I can say is that our clients have said that they're very excited about the stuff that we're bringing to the table, and that they think that we're moving in the right direction, and that they think that
Can I hazard a guess, and do I say that I see a product in the making here?
So we're only making a product for our own use. We're not
Right
going
now?
to, yeah, but I mean, we have a lot of clients. So the clients log into our portal
Okay.
to see all the information, the reports, everything about their cases.
Right.
We've branded that. It's called Arrow. And honestly, your Peru team has helped us build that out over the last couple of
They're
years.
very proud of it.
Yeah, so it's really they've done a great job, and we get a lot of great feedback on that, and we have a lot of things on the roadmap for 26 to continue to build that out and expand it. So there's good stuff.
Exciting, exciting. So you have to be so focused, so driven, hyper-focused, hyper-driven to get to the place where you're at, right? And I think I understand the mentality of the brain that doesn't stop thinking. What is next for you personally and professionally?
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of work to do to get this thing. I'll say across the finish line, but nothing's ever finished, right?
Right.
So, to the point where I feel like that it's doing what we've set out to make it do, but there's always going to be something else, right? So, we always have to look at what's going to happen after this. So after we finish this automation, then what's next?
Right.
So we're building out, a roadmap that expands more than just 1 or 2 years, trying to understand, where we need to take the business, how we're going to keep, making the business better, improving our bottom line and improving the top line to get more business. But for me, I'm here at Archer, as long as they'll have me. I think that this is a really exciting opportunity, and like I said, I have a lot of great partnership that lets me execute on things. And so, yeah, it's really positive. So,
And the technologist in you looks for that challenge and seems like you've been presented with enough productive challenges and problems to solve for that's kept you engaged and going, and you've got a nice roadmap for the next few years to come.
yeah, and I mean, a lot of companies don't want to build things, right?
Right.
So, and I think I'm lucky to have found a company that wants to invest in building a platform and not just putting together some off-the-shelf products, right?
Right.
Because, like I said, my background is software development. And, I think that I've got a lot of things I can bring to the table, and having that really makes a difference for me.
That is such a critical question right there, because I get that build or buy decision question all the time myself. And I think it's so org specific. So if you're a massive, large enterprise, then definitely go ahead and get that multi-million-dollar contract with that massive CRM platform out there. But if you're a smaller company, what functionality do you really need? And by the time you end up spending what you're going to spend in customizing another platform for IP that you don't own and data that is now out of your control, where's that balance? So,
Well, I mean, I think depending on the need, right? I'm never going to go build an accounting system.
yeah,
I'm never going to build an HR system, buy those, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. But for something industry specific, there is no claims administration system out there that does what we need it to do,
right.
because we're so niche and so specific that, we had to build our own. And so, but, definitely I'm not going to go build an email system. There are things that I would absolutely buy.
Right.
And, I'm definitely always cloud first, but I feel like that having the opportunity to build out this platform is really a good opportunity for me, because, I love building things.
Absolutely. So, what do you do to unwind? What is the downtime activity that sort of resets and recharges you?
Yeah, I mean, I love hanging out with my wife and my family, and we've got our mini golden doodle May, who we take on walks, and we like to go, out to eat and go to movies and restaurants and have wine, things like that. Love concerts. So those are kind of things. But really, it's spent around spending time with my wife and family.
Family.
That's the core for me.
Any personal projects or involvements in the community that you would like to talk about today?
You know, I honestly have been so busy at work that I don't have a lot of time for many personal projects or other things. But I do like to still stay involved in the community aspect.
I know
And
you're
yeah,
actively involved in the CIO space because
yeah,
I do run into you at events and we have a lot of common contacts. So I know you do stay engaged with that group.
yeah. I make an intentional effort to do that
Oh, yes.
because I could definitely just sit there and work, even longer hours than I already do. But I know that it's important to get out and, network with people and learn what they're doing and understand, what other things are out there. So,
What's funny because almost every time I had to step out for a networking event, my first instinct is I'd rather just be home. But never do I regret going once I'm there. Then I'm like,
right.
oh, I'm so glad I came. I got to meet so many of my friends and colleagues. And so,
Yeah. And it's always good to
but
see.
it does take intentional effort. It
Mhm.
doesn't just happen because that time doesn't automatically exist.
Right, right. Because you do have to take time out of your work. And a lot of times that means that I've got to go work on the weekend to sort of make up the fact that I missed.
Yeah. That work doesn't get done on its own ever. So
Right. So, but it is important to do. So I do try to make time to do it.
wonderful. Well, Mark, thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking the time. What an enjoyable conversation. I learned so much about your industry, about your space. I'm blown away with the amount of change you are actually responsible for in your industry as a whole, not just at your firm. So I'm excited to see what's to come for you. And I would love to do a follow-up
Yeah.
next year because you have so much going on. I want to stay in touch and figure out where you're at and how all the plans and the roadmap items are shaping out for you. Thank you
No,
for
that's
taking
great.
the time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.